right. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by two guests. This is mainly a follow-up to the interview I did with Rich Galgano about 6 months ago. So guest number one, Rich. He is an entrepreneur, investor, author,
Author.
author, and also the owner of Takeover Strength, which is an evolution. I'm not sure the best way to phrase it, but from Kabuki Strength or Kabuki Power. And then we also have Derek McCormick. He's the man behind Havoc and the new managing director of Takeover Strength. So guys, thanks for hopping on. Looking forward to chatting.
Thank you very much for giving us the audience. We greatly appreciate it, and really appreciate, Jake, you giving me the opportunity to amplify the message or explain what had transpired last year. It was I think it was very helpful for the community, and thank you very much for allowing us to do that.
Glad to hear it. I thought it was one of the most interesting podcasts I've ever done, and a lot of people felt the same way. So again, it's already been 6 months since we did that podcast. First question would be for you, Rich. I'd be curious to hear if you could remember going back to that podcast. What was the original feedback from that interview? You just kind of telling all the good, the bad. Was there more good versus more bad, or vice versa?
I think it was all good. Whether it's constructive criticism, any kind of criticism, any kind of positive. Look, it was good. The customer base for that business was rabid. I mean, look, they loved the product. Ultimately, the biggest issue was you can love a product, but when the product is made so well and you only buy one or two and you have a very small customer base, the product doesn't survive. You're almost an enemy of your own, or you're a victim of your own success. So the fan base was rabid, but how many barbells do you need ultimately was the deciding factor there, and they just did not have the sales to sustain the overhead for that small niche market they were after, other than the Transformer bar and the Cadillac bar, but they couldn't sell enough of those with their overhead to even break even.
Yep. All right. So, and either of you can answer. Maybe you, Derek. The next question from your side. Can you give a timeline of what the last 6 months has looked like, just estimated? So we had the interview a little bit later. You kind of teased that Kabuki Strength was going away. If you could just go into that timeline from then until where we're at today.
I believe the interview that you two had was mid-October of last year. And I was brought on January 1st, I believe it was, Rich, to kind of help this all come together. So it was interesting because I could see the feedback from the interview through October, November, and December, and then to actually kind of see behind the scenes the following months. And further to Rich's point, that rabid fan base definitely voiced their opinions on things. Some of them, are more accurate criticisms, and some of them were just people, with misplaced anger. And that really and kind of quickly transitioned over to excitement for what was going to come. So you could call the last 6 months a little bit of a cleanup period, as well as a preparatory period for the new products, but also the reimagining of other designs that we're moving forward with under the Takeover brand. So, nobody is eager to get yelled at for anything, whether it's their fault or not. But it's part of the gig.
Yep.
That people will criticize your podcast, people will criticize the trade show, people will find something to criticize, and they're free to do so. But at the end of the day, our mission is to produce products that actually help people and help more people than a tiny fraction of the world who wants a barbell to squat 1,000 pounds.
Well, during that 6 months, or maybe since you've hopped on to the podcast, was there anything that just surprised you by the reactions, regarding either when the Kabuki Baron went away or when you launched your first product, etc.?
No, I wouldn't say there was any surprises per se. There's, before we got the recording going, we were talking about going to Home Gym Con, and you had mentioned, yeah, you're not going to see any of those the trolls there.
No.
Nothing really surprises me anymore when it comes to this industry or human nature in general. People will do what they're going to do, and you just got to kind of stay focused on what your goal is.
Right. And Jake, if I could jump in, really, it was a very small handful of people. Most of the people that we dealt with post-October were just ordering trap bars, ordering Cadillac bars, ordering squat saddles, and it was very cordial. There were, and I stayed off of Instagram. We didn't post things on Instagram unless we were having a sale or we had an announcement to make. So we avoided that whole scene, and we did it on purpose. Really, our goal was, and me and Derek were talking long before. Derek's been a trusted advisor since November, December. He came officially on in January when we decided we were going to definitely move forward with this. And so we were really just focused on selling the excess inventory and really working with Derek on a weekly basis of how do we take what we want to do, what are the segments, what is our market, how do we make really great products, make them here in the United States, and what can we do that will set us apart and move us away? We don't want to be Kabuki. That's out the window. That ship is long sailed. We're Takeover now, and hopefully after today, we never have to talk about Kabuki or Kabuki strength or Kabuki power. I think everybody knows what happened, and we're talking about, Takeover. We're driving forward. We ain't looking backwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. Forgive me, but I'm going to ask what so I remember last time we discussed, you're like, I don't know if we're going to be in the barbell business anymore. I don't think so. And it's kind of led to thoughts of, probably somebody else is going to produce them. So we know that Rogue is producing a few of them. I would just love to hear behind the scenes, what did that look like? So we knew Rogue had some barbells, and then you had a list of others that no longer exist. So if you could just expand on what happened, that would be great.
Yeah, and we're happy. We'll tell you everything, skeletons and all, dirt and all, bad, good, bad, and ugly today. Totally get it, and I'm sure the community wants to know what happened. So when we decided, like, look, we can't produce these bars and make money. Other people are much better at this, whether they want to bring them in offshore, make them here. So we approached, I will tell you, just about every single company, both distributors and manufacturers. And look, Rogue had locked down the Cadillac and the Transformer. I have a good relationship with them, great relationship. So those bars really weren't up for discussion. So you're talking about the deadlift bar, the trap bar, the squat bar, Duffalo bar, and a few other. The volume, nobody wanted them. And we were willing to give them away for almost a pittance, just a small royalty a bar. Nobody wanted them. And I think the ultimate reason was because there wasn't a market for them. And again, I'll give you an example. Like, you could sell 400 deadlift bars a year, but you had to buy enough steel to produce 800 bars. The numbers don't work out. So I am not shocked nor surprised that there was not any takers for the names, the trademarks, and or the designs. Derek, I think you could elaborate a lot better than I can.
And well, building on that, I think it's really important to address the life cycle of a lot of these products in this industry. is if a new or reimagined concept or product comes to market, everybody gets excited about it, and everybody who wants one will try to get one. So you're going to have that big wave of sales in the beginning, and then over time, it's going to find its level. And whether that level is above or below profitability is really the trick. So take the Cadillac, for example. When it came out, there wasn't many other bars that featured those same design details, that arced design, the properly angled handles. So when it came out, it was a step above everybody else. And anyone who had $500 to spend on the specialty bar was buying that bar. But there's a finite number of customers. So as that wave came down and you had these other competitors bringing in products from offshore or building them here and undercutting the Cadillac, you saw the popularity of that come down. Now, Rogue offering that shows you they still have a market for it. But whether it's a Kabuki company, Takeover company, or any other company, they may not have the customer base and reach and overall volumes to justify making it. And people love to make stuff for themselves. That's great. But if you're in a business, you have to make a couple dollars. And you're not going to make anything that's going to lose you money. So the power bar, again, it had its wave and it came down. Deadlift bar, trap bar. It's just the nature of the industry and the nature of releasing a product and not continually evolving it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the trap bar, there's nothing like the trap bar. The trap bar was phenomenal. Okay. At our cost structure, to make money, it had to be 760, 770, 775, and that's just too expensive. And quite honestly, the only time we sold those bars when we got that price down in the 550 range, we were making $10, $15, $20 a bar. We were doing that so we could transition to Takeover and turn the cash we spent back into cash instead of steel. And that was really it. And we sold probably close to 300 trap bars and probably 500 Cadillac bars in the last 2-3 months. But we had to heavily discount those items to sell those. Heavily discount them.
For a profit of $600.
We literally made
Yeah. A lot of these decisions, whether it's in this business or just in life in general, the juice has to be worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
No one wants to work a job that's killing them for peanuts.
No.
Right.
And Jake, it was more than that because we had to get our manufacturing set up. We had my son was driving weekly from Nashville to South Carolina. It was we would have probably, from a time standpoint, we probably would have been better off just writing that loss off and just move on and start Takeover sooner. 50-50 hindsight, but it is what it is. And my son learned a lot. He learned a lot about manufacturing and shipping and packaging and piece parts. And there's a lot of things that go into this barbell, especially these specialty bars. It's not a fun business. Put it that way. It's not like making the stuff we're making. The stuff we're making, this is fun, isn't it, Derek?
Definitely more so.
So when did you guys meet?
Well, our first conversation came about, I guess it was probably the summer of, would it be 23? Or I think, or 24. No, 24.
It was probably April when you sent that Instagram out saying Havoc is no longer doing business with Kabuki. And we had $25,000 of Havoc product in stock that I needed to turn to cash.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting with that is it was the December before that. So December of 23, I advised the original Kabuki ownership that I was no longer going to partner with them in the licensing of the Triad design. And that was just the result of what had occurred over a span of 3 to 4 years. Now, then Rich came onto the scene, became more involved, and then we had a conversation about potentially rekindling that licensing agreement. And unfortunately, with what I had experienced prior, I was just like, you know what? I don't think that's going to happen. However, as you're not new to business, but you're new to the fitness equipment business, if you have a question, hit me up. And that's an offer I've made to countless people within the industry over the years is like, if you want my 2 cents, I'll gladly offer it for what it's worth. And that kind of started our communication over those preceding months that led up to the me coming on board in January of this year.
How did it get brought up?
Well, we were kind of almost having, weekly, if not every other day, conversations. Maybe it was a 5-minute call or an hour conversation, and Rich would have to answer, I guess, the question more accurately as to why I'm worth keeping around. But I think it just stems from the fact that I've spent more than half of my life in this industry, and I've seen a lot of things come and go, and I've had my hands involved in virtually every aspect of the process. So it just makes the transition, evolution, and growth of Takeover, I think it speeds it up.
Yeah. And the other thing is, look, I'm as straight a shooter as they come, and I've learned that about Derek. And I think we have a lot more in common than we don't have in common. And I've always found that I've had my best success when you can find people that you can confide in and ask questions to and not get a bunch of bullshit, right? And if you're full of shit, you want someone to tell you you're full of shit. You don't want someone to tell you how great you are. So you got to remember also, Derek spent time within that organization. So I was able to reach out to him offline and get a perspective and say, am I crazy here? Did you see the same thing? Am I right? Am I wrong? Why can't we make money? I know why we can't make money. Do you agree with what I'm seeing? So Derek's a freaking great guy. And ultimately, you have to go into an endeavor like this knowing that you could fail, and if you do fail, he's going to be the first one to pick up the phone and say, this isn't working, let's pull the plug, or he's going to say, this is going to be really, really good, let's expand the product line. So I think I got a great partner here, and I think someone who genuinely loves the business and the industry. And you know what, he and I are similar. I've come to learn he loves the customer. His first concern always when he answers an email is, how do we take care of the customer? So, and even in cases where we cannot, where it's just not possible, he's looking for ways to, and that's admirable. And that's why this business, if there is a market for these products, which I believe there is and he believes there is going to be a great business, because that's going to be the focus, is going to be on the customer. Not on anything else. Just building the brand and taking care of the customer. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer.
No, that's great. So, all right, Takeover strength. So I think maybe the website launched a couple weeks ago. It's April 9th right now. The website's recently launched. We have the STRAPBAR, and then the squat saddle, and then the STRAPBAR combined with the squat saddle.
The harnesses.
So those are live. I think they launched last week. Would love to hear how that's going. And then we'll discuss what's next as well.
Yeah, the landing pages launched last week. The full site in and of itself is still kind of being built out to help blend in the other products that are coming. Now, the response to the STRAPBAR has been good, and I think it's going to become better once people start seeing it in the real world more. So creating content on our end is obviously a focus, but also getting it in the hands of people and letting them play with it. I think the idea of being able to take that comfort and support of the transformer and applying it to virtually any other straight bar implement, whether it be free weight or cable based, is going to make that an extremely popular product for the 95% of the population, right? The transformer was for the 5%. This is for everyone else. So, and I think the other products that are coming on online, possibly this week, if not next, is going to drive the the excitement even more.
And I don't know if anybody would like me to display any of these items. This is what Derek's talking about. I just grabbed a small bar from my basement, a functional training bar. So this is the saddle with the strap bar and the bar attached. And you can put pretty much any straight bar. Oh, there goes the saddle. Pretty much any straight bar on this thing. Well, this is actually good because you can see how it attaches. It won't damage the bar the way we set it up with the end caps. And there it is.
So for there's a lot of people in the home gym market who are, at least this community, leaning into the whole functional training and the dual cables and the smart home gyms. That's where that strap bar, I think, is really, really going to come into play, making squats, that's such a fundamental movement, even easier and more comfortable to perform.
Yeah, so I like the idea. I remember Rich discussed it on, our first podcast. I agree. It's going to take some people getting their hands on it and spreading the word organically. But like the questions that come to my mind is, how does it feel without the squat saddle? Because that's another $100 and so dollars. How's it feel on a Smith machine? You mentioned it can be used on cable attachments. So if it works well on all of those decently, I can definitely see people purchasing something like that instead of just a standard SSB.
Especially when you talk about space and portability too, because there are so many people who, while they would love to have a home gym, they're still training in a commercial gym, and their commercial gym does not have a safety squat bar. This gives them that opportunity. For the countless people in the beat up or older demographic, Smith machine squats is what they focus on. This is going to make that so much better for them.
Yeah, there's no SSBs at Crunch Fitness, are there?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then I was curious, Rich, you mentioned on the last podcast, you said, I whipped it up 4 days later, filed a patent. Did the patent, what's the status of the patent? Did you actually file the patent?
Yep.
And then just in general, would be curious on your take on the importance of patents.
Well, I'm just a firm believer. If you come up with something IP, it's really important to protect it. Because someone can just take this, go produce it in China and bring it over here and, just undercut what somebody came up with. So I know some people are not for patents. They think they're harmful. I've always tried to protect IP where I can. So, but the patent's filed, and matter of fact, I talked to the patent attorney a week or two ago. These things just take time. I mean, the first patent I got, it took four years from the time we filed it until the time I got the examiner to go ahead and issue the patent. So they're very busy at the USTPL right now, but he feels really comfortable, very confident that we are going to go ahead and be able to get this.
And to the patent thing, I think it's really, it brings up another aspect of the industry that is important, in that if the community wants to value innovation, patent or not, they should, as best as possible, support the people who created the concept that they're looking at. If you've got somebody who comes up with a unique way of doing calf raises, support them and support them with your dollars. Don't, pat them on the back and wait 6 to 12 months for someone to knock it off and bring it in offshore. That's kind words are nice, but you want to be able to support them financially so those individuals can continue to produce and create products.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure. For any industry, not just the fitness industry, any industry.
Got it. Yeah.
Rip-offs are horrible.
Yeah. And I probably should have asked you this before I asked about the strap bar, but we were here at Takeover Strength. If you were to tell somebody you just met, or just somebody, let's just go with somebody you just met, like, what is Takeover Strength and how does it differentiate itself from any other gym equipment fitness company?
I would say we are a predominantly United States-based manufacturer and distributor of unique products that have a wide customer base. The STRAPBAR, unique product. Squat saddle, unique product. You can use it with the strap kit, the harnesses, and do functional training and use it on bars. So that's one product. The next product, are, these are familiar. These are like the old baby boomer, known as Kabuki. We've rebranded these, but what we've done that's unique is we've created these little end caps, okay? And then you can take Hypervolt or Theragun extensions. And now what you've done is you've created more than just the tool that was. And we've made these, we have these. The relief you get with the additional tooling, it's unbelievable. So we're creating unique products for a wide niche customer base that are not available anywhere else. And again, we're going to be making these products in the United States when and where we can. And I would say right now, I think, Derek, 98% of everything we produce or sell is manufactured in the United States?
Of our products, yes. I think it's one component out of one product that isn't made here. Now, and building on that, a lot of people in the equipment business either start off that way or try to gravitate towards being a one-stop shop. That they have every product in their catalog. You can get your cardio, you can get your bubble gum, you can get your whatever from them. That is not what Takeover is about. We want to focus on offering products that help people improve and or recover their movement and their ability to recover. So you've got the squat saddle system allows more people to benefit from a safer squat. Simple. The recovery products, whether it be the sticks or the blades, those are designed to help people recover better. And the RX, that cap adapter, marries loaded myofascial release with the precision of percussion massage. You've got those two kind of competing ideologies when it comes to recovery. We're actually combining them, which is going to, I don't want to say change the game because I'm not a fan of the phrase,
right?
But just it takes the best of both worlds and combines them and makes it easier for people who either perform self-care, doing therapy on themselves, or professionals who are working with clients.
Right. So, for example, like how do we make improvements to what's there? So this is what was called the baby boomer. And I believe that this was an afterthought and actually it was a remnant from the boomstick. Okay. So me and Derek sat down and we said, people buy this, it's reasonable, affordable, you can throw it in your gym bag, but not a whole lot of, what's the right word I want to use, Derek? Not a whole lot of functionality.
There were some things that were missed. It was, hey, we have some extra steel. What can we do with it? Let's just make a smaller version of that. No, wait a second. Let's think this through. And can we actually make it better?
So what we did is we made it almost twice the length and size so we can get the weight, because the weight's really important on this. And then we're going to have one end that is typical end. And all of this will happen also with the Pro Stick as well. We've changed the end. So now you've got two different.
It seems like such a silly, simple idea, but for anyone who has actually used these tools on people, there are times where you cannot effectively work an area with that round end. It becomes too difficult to hold in position and navigate. Whereas offering a flat end, go figure, something super simple, makes that movement, that pressure more beneficial to the user.
Yeah. And then this is what's called the Mile Rock. This was the old tool they had. But number one complaint we heard, what? You can't, I got small hands, right? You can't really grip this. What do you do with this? And this was designed this way so people could put it on what was called the shoulder rock before. And then people would put it on the shoulder rock and use it like as for their feet or their back to reach blades. But we sell these. This is a great product. By the way, these were coming from Pakistan. No more. We're making these in the United States. But this is the new blade. Okay, you can grip this with two hands. You've got the 3 different sides, including a straight edge. You can sit there, hit your neck, your forearm, your feet. Much much better product, and this is just the prototype plastic version. I don't have the metal one, steel one made yet. It's in process. But this is the kind of thought process that we're going, how do we make these better? And Derek, is there anything you want to add to this product at all?
It's one of those things where, and as someone who has been designing products for quite a while, you'll get that initial idea and you get super excited and you run with it. And that is definitely one approach. But then the other approach is, well, let's try to critique it. Act like a competitor. Try to critique the product you just created to help you come to making it a better overall product. Back in the day when I used to work retail sales and my store would sell a certain product line and a competitive store would sell another product line, I tried to put my mindset into the competitive mode of, okay, how do I sell against what I sell, right? To better understand the product. Now, if you take that approach and you apply it to design, you elevate the product. The MyoWalk worked. They sold, but it could have been better if it had been critiqued and or listened to critique. People talk shit and that's fine, but when people say, well, why not this, why not that, there might be something of value there. You have to listen. You have to know what's going on and then implement that into your own business.
And we did that, exactly what we did. We took that product, the old MyoRock, to physical therapists and massage therapists, at least a half a dozen, and we got the exact same feedback from every one of them. There were 4 women and 2 men, and I believe most of the MyoRocks sold today were sold to probably people that are self-medicated, self-care. But we think there's a much broader market, which is the physical therapist, athletic trainer, massage therapist. And they're the ones that designed that with Derek by saying, I can't grip it. There's nothing, if I'm using an oil, it's going to slip out of my hands. This gives them the leverage, gives them the surface area to work big muscles. And we have we're doing everything we can to keep that price where the MyoRock was. I think we're really close. We may even be there. So a better product at the same price, made in the USA. I mean, it's a home run for the consumer.
Cool. What about Rich? I'd be curious to hear. You've obviously met Derek. You're working with him. Who else in the space have you met that has impacted you or that you're currently collaborating with that you could share?
I would say Brian from Wait It Out. We talked to him. Brian's a great guy. He's still in the startup stage. Matter of fact, his office is 10 minutes down the street from my office. So and then I've gotten some really good advice from Joe Mackey as well, from Mackey Innovations.
And of course we have to include Donnie Thompson in the conversation.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, for sure, Donnie. I don't know how I could forget him. Yes. And Don loves the adapter cap, by the way. He loves the RX adapter cap.
Good. So, and then the follow-up question is, do you have any sort of, you mentioned some products might be releasing soon, any sort of roadmap of new products? And then just like in general, how many ideas are in the pipeline?
That's all you, Derek.
Let's not go into the pipeline.
Yeah, that was kind of vague. I'm sure it's large.
I think you had to at least tease him about the club, because the club is going to be freaking awesome.
So we've got that squat saddle system, which is the strap bar, the squat saddle, and the harness. That's is up on the site now. Next up will be the RX sticks, the Sport and Pro model, which are the reimagined and improved Baby Boomer and Boomstick. Following that will be the RX blades, which is what we just discussed, which are the evolution of the MyoRock. And then after that will be the replacement for the shoulder rock. And that's the one that I kind of everything that we have going is one of the things that excites me the most, because working with our manufacturing team and listening to the feedback from people who own shoulder rocks, handling the Instagram account and getting the conversations going with people of, hey, I have this and this is what's going on. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. We're able to take all that information and distill it down to create a product that I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be an exceptional advancement over what came before, and really kind of put it at the forefront of improving movement for people, whether we're talking a youth athlete or a professional athlete, and even Joe Public in the middle. Like the capabilities and ease of use that this thing is going to have is, I think, going to get some attention.
Yeah.
After that, we have a few other products, and then this is something that we haven't really discussed a ton publicly, is we're also considering the incubator program, allowing inventors or people with ideas that have no means of bringing those ideas to market to come to us, and we can help them with the process.
Yeah, 100%. We got to just make sure that this incubator gets off the ground. Once this incubator flies, then we're gonna see if we can help the innovation that's out there, bring it to market.
Because I don't care who you speak with or who's in this industry, not everybody has every great idea out there. You're going to have concepts that can come from the middle of nowhere, from someone who's never been heard of before, but it's still a great idea. So how do we help them get that to the consumers?
Yeah, makes sense. What about just over the past 6 months? What are some of the things that you've done well? And then what are some of the things that you wish you could have changed? Maybe Rich, start with this one.
Done well, hire Derek.
What about some mistakes that you'd like to change? Or
I mean, I'm pretty thick-skinned, so those mistakes, you chalk them up. You got to file them in the memory bank, so you don't make those mistakes again. But you can't harp on them. Look, hindsight's 50-50. There's a lot of things I can change. If there was something that I could give you that would benefit somebody, like be a learning experience, I don't think there is. I think the mistakes we made were mental mistakes, being just human error, not someone forgot to throw a freaking box of bolts in a box, things like that. Maybe not properly training the guys that were packing some of the things that we were doing. Maybe we were rushing a little bit, but nothing that would be a business lesson I could give. The mistakes we made were far, far, far worse than the last 6 months. I mean, so this was moving, shutting down Clackamas, Oregon, moving things to South Carolina. Look, that was in and of itself a Herculean feat to put, truckloads, getting machinery set up, getting the facility, getting the electricity wired. I mean, we were not just moving finished goods from Oregon to South Carolina in boxes and shipping them. We had to fabricate. Most of the things we got were unfinished piece parts. So we had to look at the plans, learn how to build these things, fabricate certain parts. So I think what we did was remarkable. My son, for never doing this, did a great job. Could he have done better in some aspects? Absolutely. But he did better than 98% of the rest of society would have done with the same project. So what we did was, I think, pretty remarkable when you really think about what one kid did. So I don't want to call my kid a son. He's a 26-year-old grown man, but this was, I think what we did was phenomenal at the end of the day, and pretty remarkable. Derek, you got anything to add?
Yeah, looking from the outside, from the you getting involved and trying to bring it to where it's going to go, it almost reminds me of those renovation shows where you've got the people come into the house and it was owned by a hoarder, and you got the ceiling falling down. It may look great from the outside, but it's a disaster on the inside. It takes a lot of effort. And it takes a lot of determination, because it's easy to try to just walk away from that level of problem. The difference being, in the real world, you don't get to go from that disaster to a perfect home in an hour. This has taken weeks and months in order to make this transition and this evolution of the companies occur, while simultaneously trying to put together a product portfolio of stuff to sell to such a wide demographic, such a wide customer base. Like if it's shutting down a company, that's one thing. Starting another company, that's another. Trying to do both at the same time and transition that across the country, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. It probably would have been less headache for Rich to say, I'm just writing the whole thing off, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the original thought that I had and I asked this on the first podcast. Like, I'm kind of surprised you're even going through it. But yeah, okay. So
that speaks to his character though too. Like there are the number of people who have come and gone in this particular industry is wild. It is way longer than most people realize, because most people haven't been in it a lifetime. He wouldn't have been the first who kind of got in and said, you know what, it's not worth my trouble. I can make more money with a lot less stress someplace else. But the fact that he chose to stick in it speaks to what kind of person he is. And I think the industry needs more of that. People who are willing to put their money where their mouth is and try to actually elevate the product and elevate the industry as a whole.
Cool. You guys let me know if you guys have time restrictions. Okay, cool.
I blocked my calendar off. I'm good.
All right, cool. All right. Two things on tariffs. So I think this would probably be best for Rich to at least start off with. So number one, just your take on what the current tariffs in place and going for, like, whatever is going on means for the, let's call it, gym equipment industry. And then number two, as somebody who is producing, you said 98% of the material and products in the US, what does that mean for you? Like, I know it's pretty obvious if you're importing, like, the costs are up for you, but what does it mean for somebody who's making most of their stuff in America?
Obviously it's only been 4 days. I don't think anybody knows if this is going to last 4 weeks or 4 months. My guess, if I had to guess, I would think this, for most of the countries, this stuff is going to be resolved fairly shortly. If you're doing business in South Korea and Vietnam, I think this will be resolved in weeks, not months. If you're doing business in China, this is going to be up to China. See, whether these tariffs end or not, this is not up to us. This is now up to the other countries. They have to decide if they are going to play ball with us. That's it. It's up to them. If they decide they don't like what we're doing, then that's their choice. I don't think these are going to, knowing what I know about the president today, I don't think he's going to change his position, since he's already changed it 3 times in the previous 5 weeks, with Canada and Mexico. I think he can. I don't think he can. If he does, we're going to lose all the leverage we have, and then we'll never be able to even cut a fair trade deal no matter who the president is for us. So I think if you're doing business with Vietnam and South Korea, I think that will subside fairly quickly. If you're doing business with China, you've done that at your own peril. I'm sorry. I've been manufacturing products in the United States for the entire time I've been in business. I don't know that people really understand the trickle-down effect when we don't make things here. Look, if you make things here, somebody has land. Somebody puts a building on that land. Somebody builds a building. Somebody then occupies that building, pays rent. So the person that owns that building is a benefactor. The person that pays that rent, if they have a good business, they are a benefactor. Then there are employees in that plant. And then those employees pay taxes in the town. The person that owns that building pays property taxes. And then those people that work in that plant, they go and they visit restaurants and stores in that town. The person that owns that business, they benefit. I mean, the damage to a community when we don't make things here is enormous, and nobody thinks about it. That's why, again, I've been fighting currency manipulation. I've been fighting against imported products. my entire life. And that's just the way I was raised. I don't run off overseas to see what I can find to bring it here cheaper. Now, if things aren't made here and you have to go overseas, I totally understand that. I'm empathetic to that. I would personally love to see all these companies that are making things overseas. I know there are, competitors. They're all buying it from the same factory. They're not. They don't own these factories. They're going there overseas and they're cutting these deals. Sure, would be nice if we could get one factory here to make all that product for them, and then they can compete on service and whatever else they need to compete with. But I'm disheartened as a American citizen by what has occurred in this country over the last 35 years, really since NAFTA. And I know there are people that are trying to change it in the industry, and I hope that we reward it. But look, I don't spend anybody's money. I don't live in their household, and I understand it. I will tell you this though: over the last 5 years since post-pandemic, the average American family, their cost of living expenses has increased by $17,300 per year, while their incomes on average have only risen 18,000. So that means 96.5% of every incremental dollar the average American family of four has earned has been stolen by inflation, state, local taxes. And by the way, 50% of that inflation, at least in the year 2023, can be attributed to excess margin expansion. So that means this has been the biggest wealth transfer from the working class to the investment class in American history. So I'm sad and I'm sickened. And I think what we're doing now has to be done. Derek, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think when it comes to the fitness equipment industry as a whole, in many cases, it has been a race to the bottom. And what I mean by that is, at one point, I would say probably 95% of exercise equipment, like the plates and bars and benches and all that stuff, was actually made here, was made in the US. And then you started having some companies going offshore. It started with Taiwan, and then it went to China, and a lot of it's now going to India. It made the product more attractive to the consumer on the surface, in the moment. Hey, this is 10% cheaper, 20% cheaper, 50% cheaper. I'm going to get that because it's the same thing. Physically, maybe it is the same thing, but to Rich's point, it isn't the same, because now you have taken those dollars out of the pocket of the American worker, the American factory, and the American towns. Like, anyone who has seen what has happened to certain cities and towns in this country where their single economy, their single source of revenue to that community was taken away. You can go old school and look at a mining town that was going great until they shut the mine down, and then it died. Now, if you end up taking all manufacturing or a bulk of the manufacturing out of a country and you start buying everything from somewhere else, the outcome's going to be the same. The consumer has to understand what they're doing. They really do. But, we and I have had this conversation before about import products. I understand the logic, but it's typically very short-sighted. Now, I personally would rather have 3 kick-ass American-made barbells than 10 or 20 from another country. That's just my belief. People are free to do what they wish.
Yeah. What about specifically though for somebody, because if you listen to people talk about the tariffs, they say obviously the products coming from overseas the prices are going to go up, but then also the made in America or made in your country products, the prices are also going to go up for that as well.
Not necessarily.
But yeah, I would love for you to explain that.
Jay, let me speak to that first. So matter of fact, I'm still the CEO of the wire and cable company. We don't import anything. Our cardboard boxes made in the USA, our plastic inserts made in the USA, our wooden reels made in the USA. All of our compounds come from USA providers. So we don't have any risk. As a matter of fact, we are putting out marketing pieces targeting people that don't do business with us, that we are made in the USA and there are no tariffs. There are no additional charges. Our prices are prices. So in no world if anybody sees this as an opportunity to raise your prices, you're sick. The consumers have suffered enough. They're tapped out. They have no more money. So, and in addition, and if these don't get resolved, here's what I believe will happen in a lot of cases. The importers are going to go to the producers and say, the consumer has no more money. If we raise prices, they're not going to be able to buy them because they're tapped out. And I just explained to you why they're tapped out. $23,000 of savings gone. Credit card debt up to here. Every incremental dollar they've made the past 5 years is gone. It's not in their pocket. They have no more money. So if we raise prices, you can raise prices $10, $1,000. They're not going to buy it because they have no more money. So the producers are going to have to decide, am I going to lower my prices? Am I going to eat this tariff? They're going to try to eat some. They're going to go to their country. They're going to go to their government. Government is going to probably give them some subsidies. And then you're going to have currency manipulation. And currency manipulation is horrible. But that's what these countries are going to do in the short term because they don't want their factories shut down. At least that's my take on it. But I've been doing this a long time. I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. And if they think the consumers are going to take it, Jake, you can probably speak to this too. You talk to everybody. I don't know how they can. How can they?
And let's be clear about one thing. There are products that are made out of this country. There are products that are made in this country, but that has two categories. Stuff that's made here with American sourced materials, and then stuff that's made here with not American sourced materials. You know, if you're buying all your steel from Asia and getting it here and building here, the tariff's going to bite you. Maybe it doesn't bite you as hard as it does ordering your whole finished goods from Asia, but it kind of all comes down to the fact that the bill always comes due, and after decades of buying products that come from somewhere else, now we're in a position where we have to start making some choices.
Right. And if I want to add one thing too, because this situation going on right now, this is not about eliminating tariffs. In my opinion, it's really not. What it's about production, because the world is moving fast. And what I mean by production, if you don't own production, you don't own the customer. And this is shipping product to Europe, it's shipping product to Asia, South America, Central America, Africa, Middle East. It's about owning the production because the world is moving fast. Robotics and automation and AI is here. Those other things are here, but this is coming fast. Okay? If you don't own the production, you're not going to build the plants of the future. This is really a battle between us and China. Trump wants the production here because we have to build the factories of the future, because the first one that builds the factory of the future, China's already building factories much better than we are because they have the products, because we were idiots, we were dipshits, and we gave them the production. We are far behind them in automation. And if we don't catch up, if we don't wake up, and if we don't bring that production here, and if we don't leverage our markets, to access our markets, we want the production. You want to ship your products and goods here, then we need more production. You need to take more of our products. Because if we don't build the factories of the future here, we are dead. And I will tell you, a factory full of automation, robots, and people working side by side with them in America is 100 times better than the alternative. So if we don't wake up as a country and we don't realize that we may have to sacrifice today for a prosperous future tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren, then you are self-indulgent and you are small-minded. That's my opinion. And that's what this is about. It's not about you don't have tariffs on us, we have tariffs on you. It's all about the means and who's going to produce the goods of tomorrow. And that includes racks, that includes barbell, it includes everything. And that's my rant for the day, Jake.
Yeah, things got real serious real quick. So I mean, what happens though if I mean, what does that look like if we are able to get more manufacturing within the US more barbells, more racks, more plates, does that eliminate? Do we still have overseas products that are cheaper, or I don't know, what does a future in the gym equipment industry look like if that does happen?
Well, look, if you have all, well, we don't pay people with fish heads and a bowl of rice. Okay, that's the fact. We have to pay people a good wage. But as you bring automation on and robotics on, the price of the goods from look, the only way they can beat us is going to be on currency manipulation. Look, I'm in the wire business. It's copper and plastic. Copper is whatever it is, $4 a pound. Plastic is whatever it is a pound. Direct labor is inconsequential. It really is in the wire and cable world. So explain to me how China can be 30% cheaper than us, or Asia 30% cheaper. From a commodity standpoint, they cannot. They manipulate the currency or they subsidize. So on a like-for-like basis, the prices should be relatively the same. It really should be, because as we automate and we use AI and we use robotics and we use people, the direct labor cost is going to be insignificant. So I'm talking 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, but we can't do that unless we're committed to having the manufacturing here to begin with and the production here. If we don't, we're going to give everything to everything else in the world. And I don't want to hear this crap that we're a service nation, a service economy. If we're a service economy, we're dead. We're done. We have to produce and provide services. So,
and to be maybe more specific to the equipment industry, and some of the people who will be listening to this might be shocked to hear me say this. How many companies do we need making barbells? 2, 10, 20? I don't have an answer to the question, but the point is we don't need 500 different barbell manufacturers in the world. You know, if we can have some quality barbells made here and consumers have options, I think we're good. But unfortunately, it's that race to the bottom of, I can save $10, I can save 20%. I'm going to get it over here from someone who doesn't care about lifting, probably may have never lifted, and tomorrow might be selling, furniture. They don't care. It's just all about pushing numbers out versus producing goods with the end user's intent and benefits in mind.
Yeah, I guess my counter argument to that would be like, and maybe you say innovation on the barbell is tapped out, but if there's only 2 or 3 companies producing barbells, how are they ever going to continue to improve? And I would argue that, and it is a little bit really deep in the weeds to say this, but barbells over the last 50 years have gotten better progressively, based off of neural and durability and those sorts of things. And there are a lot of different barbells based on how you use it. So
100%. But the question remains is who's making it? Who is driving that innovation? And who, ultimately, who should be rewarded for those efforts? If you've got a company like, for example, if you take Rogue, who has probably spent more money on manufacturing barbells than anyone in American history, to just cast that aside and not put that into the equation of purchasing, just so I can save $10 over here.
I know. And Rogue's also probably made the most money out of anybody with the barbells.
Perhaps.
So, yeah.
And they've earned it.
And they've earned it, yeah, for sure. And they have the best brand for barbells.
Yeah. Right. Jake, if Kabuki would have contract manufactured out those bars, like with Chris's designs, they might have been way better off. They may have been way better off finding an American manufacturer that could, and they didn't have the volume to produce their own things. And if you could have, and I met guys, people called me. And there were some great companies in I think, Minnesota manufacturing bars and Kansas City manufacturing bars. So they're out there, and they're out there competing against the imports coming in from Asia, and I feel for those guys. But look, they got to outwork them, they got to out hustle them, they have to out innovate them, and at the end of the day, they have to make a better product. And I think they're doing it, or else they wouldn't be in business. Because if your only value is price and availability, and that's what you're selling, then what is your value? What is your value proposition?
No, that's exactly what I was thinking about. So like if the costs overseas do continue to be too high, people are going to go
100%.
to
100%. Yep.
the Minnesota plant, and they do make good barbells.
Yep.
And to that point, if we go back in time far enough, China didn't really make any of these goods that we're talking about for this industry. It was Taiwan. The only reason China got into the conversation is because they saw what Taiwan was doing and knew they could do it cheaper. So these manufacturers or brands that were based in the U.S. were originally sourcing from Taiwan, but they realized they could save a couple points or make a couple bucks, and they switched over to China.
Yeah. And
right?
Yeah. And I also like to, so I think the biggest thing for me is I just think a home gym will improve more people's lives. There's still a very small percentage of people, like in my neighborhood, who, when I go for walks, there's still a very small percentage of people that look like they have a garage gym or a home gym. Not enough people are working out in general. So I do think, you mentioned 2 or 3 people making barbells. I think you have to keep into consideration, like the Rogue brand for somebody who's never touched a barbell is very intimidating. Whereas like the Fringe Sport brand is more friendly and not as like, I don't know. It just seems like an easier transition with certain brands.
What would friendly mean?
They just have a more friendly face at the top. They're you see a Rogue commercial and it's about lifting 700 pounds.
Yeah.
And then you see a Fringe Sport, or there's other countless brands that they're more catered to the general. They've got, maybe they might be a little goofy, or
well, you've got what, 130 manufacturers coming to Home Gym Con.
Correct.
Right?
And I do think a lot of them are different. Sure, some are blend together, but a lot of them convey different messages, or they have unique products. Yes, but yeah, go ahead.
And let's say all 130 of them are made here. That if the market could support that many manufacturers in this country making goods here, that's fantastic. I guess my bigger point is as a market, there's just always this constant search for cheaper and faster. And that search for cheaper and faster, whether it's equipment, whether it's food, whether it's anything, the destination is not good.
Right.
And look, that leads.
And that's all Amazon.
Oh, God.
It happened way before Amazon. This goes back way before that. They sped it up, though.
Yeah. And look, I understand it. If you have an idea and you want to make something, you go to where the producers are. The only point is, we need to bring the production back here. And is there going to be pain to do that? Yes, there's going to be pain. And who's gonna absorb that pain? Is it going to be the consumer, or is it going to be the small business owner? I don't know. The only thing I will say is, what happened 5 years ago was far worse than is what is occurring today. We literally shut the world down, sent everybody home, shut down production, shut gyms down. Tens of millions of people lost their job. We're talking about trying to balance trade here. We're not talking about shutting down the world. And I see more crime and driveling today than I saw 5 years ago. And the people that tried to speak up 5 years ago were muzzled and basically told to go sit in the corner of the room. So we can project all we want. Nobody knows what's going to happen. History tells us, if you go back to 1929 when they, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, people don't realize, they think we just enacted tariffs. We had tariffs in place. Our tariffs were at 40%. Every government has had tariffs for years, okay? So before the Great Depression, our tariffs were at 40%. Then we had the market crash at 29, and they raised the tariffs from 40% roughly to 60%. That pissed the rest of the world off. The rest of the world responded, and basically what they did is we shut down trade. And then we had a period of deflation. There was no inflation during the Great Depression. We had deflation. And if you were fortunate, if you were one of the 75% that kept your job, because unemployment spiked to 25%, if you were one of the 75% that kept your job, the cost of living decreased significantly. So a lot of working class that were able to keep their jobs benefited because inflation. There was no inflation, there was deflation. So anybody that tells you tariffs are inflation, I've looked. There's never been an historical incident of widespread tariffs causing macro inflation. So everyone needs to just take a deep breath and calm down. And let's see how this plays out over the next weeks and few months.
Yeah, and we talk about higher prices, but I think like you mentioned, I think the biggest issue with people like buying gym equipment for their home or going to the gym, it is, a lot of us see it as essential, and it is essential, but it's an extra purchase that is not food or a roof over your head.
Right.
So the biggest hurdle is the lack of money to buy this stuff. It's not necessarily like if price goes up 10% or if it keeps rising steadily, it's like you mentioned, the credit cards are already full.
Yeah.
So whatever needs to happen, that's kind of the biggest thing, or the biggest hurdle, I'd say.
Right. Jake, no one was, look, the greatest, they're calling inflation, they're calling these tariffs a tax, and they very well call them a tax, okay? The cruelest tax of all is called inflation. And the American people have experienced nothing but inflation since 2021. And that is the cruelest tax, because once you have inflation, those prices, unless you're going to have a depression, they never secede. They never do. We're stuck where we are. Okay? Tariffs can be transitory. They can go from 12% to 10% to 0%. Okay? They're not permanent. What has happened to the working class is permanent. And these politicians and these people, the investor class you see crying on TV, now they're the champion of the working man. Where were they in 2023? Where were they on TV talking about the greatest, the worst tax of all, which is inflation, the most regressive tax? They got the big mouths now, but where were they? We've got to figure out how we pivot from here and fix the wrongs that have happened the last 4 years. And you can argue that tariffs are not the answer. Maybe they're not. Maybe they are. We won't know. But guess what? What we've done in the past didn't work. If you think it worked, I got a bridge to sell you somewhere, a bridge to nowhere to sell you. So we got to figure this out, because we can't run $2 trillion deficits. We can't have $32 trillion of debt. We can't have the economy propped up artificially with government spending. These tariffs are just a symptom of a far wider problem. Okay? And we have to fix this symptom first. And then we attack the disease. The tariffs aren't the disease. So, Derek, anything?
I think it would be interesting as far as the more something, say, industry or brand specific, because you have people in this equipment industry who source everything from Asia, and you have people who do everything here. It'd be interesting for people to go back and look to see how tariffs were used to keep Harley-Davidson in business, a brand that is synonymous with America, probably more so than almost any other. But go look back as to how tariffs were used to keep Harley-Davidson alive. And I believe it was in the early 70s.
Interesting. Okay.
We're going to get through this. Look, things are never, I've been through 4 of these in my lifetime. right? The dot-com bubble, 2008, the great financial crisis, which was systemic, which was a very, very serious issue. Obviously, COVID, and then we had a semi-correction in 2022 that we rebounded off of. I've seen stocks go up and I've seen stocks go down and I've seen them go back up again. And the stock market is not Main Street. Wall Street is not Main Street. They are interdependent somewhat, but 65% of the people do not have own stocks and bonds if outside of their 401k. So do you think they're really impacted if do you think they give a shit what Nvidia did yesterday or what Microsoft did or what Apple did? They're worried about the cost of a freaking Apple, not what their Apple stock did. And people forget that reality.
And probably the most in-depth economic conversation to ever hit a home gym equipment podcast.
Yeah. That was good though. I liked that. That was good to hear you guys' takes. Well, I mean, how did the Trumper bumpers go for you guys?
Well,
or you, Rich?
That was not my product. That was I'm not going to say it was somebody in the industry that was their product. And since we had a lot of followers, they did not have a lot of followers. They asked me if I would put this on the Instagram page, and I did. And boy, God, that thing went from an hour. It had like 35,000. I don't. What is it called? An impression? I'm new to this social media. Impression, views.
Yeah, I was curious. Like, did they actually sell one?
Yeah, I think they sold 2 pairs, but I got a phone call, and that person like, Rich, you don't deserve this. This is bullshit. Take it down. Take the post down. He felt bad because of all the negative comments. And I said, look, if someone came to me and they were friends of mine, and they had Kamala kettlebells, I would put that up too. I don't care. I mean, look. If you're blue, your money spends the same way if you're red or purple, okay? We're all in this thing together. And Derek had a great thing. He talked about the Breakfast Club, because if you put us all in a room together, we have a lot more in common than we have more similarities than differences. And Derek had the best thing. I'm going to let Derek tell the story because it's phenomenal. Go ahead, Derek.
When we've had conversations in the past, Jake, whether it's online or in the podcast or whatever, I reference movies a lot. I reference comic books a lot because those are the things that kind of raised me and molded me to who I am. And for those who have never seen it, go watch The Breakfast Club. It's an 80s movie, I get it, but the lessons and examples of the characters and the groups portrayed in that film are still true today. Now, when it comes to the Trumper bumper post, I find it so interesting that something like that would anger so many people who believe they are supporting a country of freedom. You can disagree, but to get into the low-level vitriol and wishing people harm and wishing people to fail because they shared a picture of a weight plate with a political theme, do we start locking people up for their tweets now? Like, I think it's really important for people to make sure that if they're angry about something, that they're directing that anger on the right spot. Because what's interesting is what you see portrayed in social media, whether it be a person or a company, may not be who they are in the real world. I've said it many times. There's a lot of people in this business playing a character, but don't have any character. And I would support someone throwing up a post or sharing an idea or going on a rant about something that I wholeheartedly disagree with, but they do so in a cordial and professional manner. I will support that, as I would hope they would support me defending my position. But for something to go viral and so much anger being thrown around about something so trivial in the world we live in, it just kind of doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I bring that up because I think that was like the most toxic comment section I've ever ran across.
I didn't even know looking at him, Jake. I mean, it was
brutal.
You just have to understand people, I guess. It is what it is. So
yeah, it was
somebody he invested, $5,000-$10,000 in those plates. So I don't, it is what it is.
This whole conversation kind of reminds me or brings me back to the gangster rap days. I don't know how much of you guys were into that, but there's a famous scene in Straight Outta Compton when NWA are on the bus, and you've got these people steamrolling over CDs and picketing them and wanting to censor them. And I think it was Eazy-E's like, as long as they paid for the CDs, they can do whatever they want with them. And when you start slapping parental advisory labels, all you're doing is creating buzz about that product. If you don't like something, ignore it. Change the channel, turn it off, go someplace else. But sitting there and ranting and raving, all you're doing is drawing more attention to something that you supposedly dislike.
Yeah. I did get a lot of pings individually on my Instagram about people just apologizing and hey, where can I find these? What's the web link? You took the post down. So it is what it is. Everyone's big boys. You make investments. You win some, you lose some. Way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought it was, it was very toxic, but I also found it very fascinating.
It was a pretty. I mean, the guy came up with a pretty good concept when you think about it. Trumper bumper. I mean, bumper plate. So hey, that's someone thinking outside the box, a little ingenuity, but I don't think they sold very well.
I thought they had a chance. I mean,
yeah.
All right. We can start to wind this down. So just a few more questions, but back to Takeover Strength. What do you guys hope the next year looks like for the company?
Acceptance. Obviously you're in business to make profits and be profitable, and that's the goal. Derek, what are your hopes?
I think acceptance is actually a great word, because obviously there was a lot of emotions about what had happened in the past. And I think the market has, for the most part, let that go. We're not getting the same level of negative comments. We're not getting even the same interest in products that are no longer available. And I think once people start seeing the new stuff, the strap bar with the squat saddle, the RX sticks, the blades, the replacement for the shoulder rock, I think people are going to kind of forget that time, the past, just chalk it up and start gravitating towards what we're trying to do with these new products, and then eventually other things.
Right. I mean, people say, oh my God, this is not Kabuki. No, it's not. It's not supposed to be. Like the RX stick and the RX Club, or the RX Pro, for the former Kabuki customer, the power lifter, the strong guy, those are phenomenal tools. Now, you may not want to get them from me because you think I was the demise of this company you loved. But if you can separate fact from fiction, they're great tools. They're great for you, but they're also great for my wife, who's 115 pounds, who's got a sore hamstring or quadricep. So they're products for everybody, not just some. Now, is the squat saddle for a guy that's squatting 500 pounds? Of course it's not. Is the strap bar? No. But maybe the saddle is if they have a transformer bar and they want to replace it, or an existing safety squat bar. But we know where we fit. And some of our products are great for those guys, but we are not going to be what was. We are going to be what needs to be for us to survive and thrive and be a great business and a great asset to the community.
Is there any communication at all with anybody from Kabuki?
Zero.
I have had offline communications with a number of people who used to work with the former organization. And I would say of the ones I've spoken to, 90, maybe 95% of those conversations have all been positive. So that fact from fiction, that what you see on social versus what happens in the real world, people who know, and people who used to support what they thought what was, that's cool. You do you. We're not looking in the rear view. That does nothing but screw up your neck. We're going to be focused forward and making products that more people can benefit from.
Rich, I'd love to hear. I think your book's coming out soon.
Yes.
You want to
Yes.
give a little insight into that?
I'm gonna do a little book hawking here.
There you go.
So this book is going to be released May 20th. You can get it pre-order at Amazon.com right now. Rich Galgano is the author, Down to the Wire. It is a story. It's a story about a kid, because I was a kid at the time, who got wrapped up in gambling really bad. It destroyed his life and it took his soul. And by the grace of God, this kid walks into a Gamblers Anonymous meeting room, meets some wonderful people, changes not some things, but changes everything. You have to get rid of what's called the stinking thinking. So I was the age of 24 when I walked into that Gamblers Anonymous room. And then a year later, from being clean from gambling, I started a business that I would turn around and build for 25 years and sell for a large sum of money. And so it's a story about gambling and then what it takes to start a business. And then it's called The Outlandish Tale of How I Quit Gambling to Win Big, because the tales in this book are absolutely outlandish. You're going to learn how I became friends with Paul Stanley from Kiss and Doc McGee, who managed Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. There are stories about me hanging out with Toby Keith and hog hunting with him, and hanging out with Navy SEALs that killed Osama bin Laden and were on the bin Laden raid and the Captain Phillips raid, and stories of my battles with Chinese businessmen and patent examiners in D.C., my gambling stories, stories of me growing up as a kid. My mom and dad, struggled every week to make ends meet. So the book's been endorsed by Paul Stanley, Doc McGee, Dan Hampton, NFL Hall of Famer, Chicago Bears, T.K. Kimbrough, manager of Glenn Campbell's estate, Toby Keith, Jamie Johnson today. There's some business executives that have endorsed the book. There are gambling advocates that have endorsed the book. And if you like humorous, funny, serious stories, but a light read, the book is unbelievable. And I'm not just saying it because I wrote it. It just is. And it took me 5 years, and it's raw and it's real. There's no bullshit in there. You'll also learn about my heart disease. There's 2 chapters on my congestive heart failure. I was diagnosed with when I was 44 years old. Today, I no longer have congestive heart failure. I'm med-free, and I go through. You actually sit in there, and as I'm talking to the doctors, and he wants to put a defibrillator in me, and you'll learn about what I did, the alternatives I took to get off of beta blockers and ACE inhibitors and blood thinners. Today, my blood pressure is 110. If you can believe it, over 70. You probably think this guy's a fucking lunatic. Oh, hope I can swear, Jake. I'm sorry. You're probably thinking this guy must have blood pressure 150 over 100. No, I don't. My blood pressure is good. And I actually sent Jake a copy, and I know, hopefully you'll read it and you'll put a review out on Amazon when you can. But that's it. I really appreciate the support, and that's it. You got any questions about the book?
No. That sounds like quite the story. I have not read it yet.
All right. Well, I just sent you that copy this morning, so enjoy it.
Yeah, this morning.
That's 400 pages, but it reads quick.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure to plug it into the links of the description of the episode.
You can find the link at Amazon, the pre-order at Amazon. It's up there. I can send it to you if you don't have it.
I'm sure I can find it.
Okay.
Anything else before we hit the stop button?
No, I want to just thank the community for supporting us. If you have any ideas, thoughts, things we can do better once we get up and going, Derek, what's the email they should email us at? Do we have one?
The best one will be store@takeoverstrength.com, or they can just go to takeoverstrength.com and scroll down and contact us.
And we are open for business, right?
Channels as well.
We are open for business. Stores open. We're taking orders. And when do we think we're going to get the sticks live? The clubs.
The sticks will be either late this week or sometime next. After that will be the blades. After that will be the replacement for the shoulder block.
And do you want to quickly just let them know what specials we're running right now with the saddle, the Mile Rock, and some of the things we're doing right now?
Yeah, it's been posted to the Instagram account, which is Takeover_strength a number of times. The squat saddle and a harness gets you a free Mile Rock, and the Mile Rock was selling for over $100, so that's a pretty solid deal.
Cool.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much, Jake. We appreciate it. And I'll see you at Home Gym Con, and hopefully Derek can get on a plane and get out there.
Cool. I hope so.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.